All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to a value conversation, your next spoken word. Find somebody to tell somebody who knows something about what's going on over here. If you like it, let me know. Share it if you do, and subscribe if this is what you're looking for. All right, so I was on a panel a little bit earlier, and of course, it's with Fatty's show. And I heard a couple of things through the conversation, even though it wasn't directly related to what we were talking about, but it was some side street information where we were looking at Nick Fuentes and some of his racist nonsense that he was talking about. And Jason Whitlock was giving commentary. All right, so we're going to go through some of that. But before I do, I got one of my partners I want to bring up here. All right, D, let me go ahead and bring you up.
All right, brother, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, D? All right, I can hear you now. I had to take care of some stuff in the background. There we go. Let me shake the screen.
You got me.
All right, cool.
All right, then.
Yo, so like I said, I've got some folks who are over in Europe right about now who may pick this up, who may not. There's some folks who are stateside who may do this as well, but I normally have what I call my replay game. So with my replay game, they sort of get in a little bit later when they can and they leave their comments. But if I do this by myself, it's no big deal because I still have to get my watch hours up. But at the same time, if people do join, which we may have a few folks who may join here a little bit later, they'll either comment, or now that I'm using StreamYard, I can probably bring up a few more people here to the panel. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and kick it off. So basically, man, what I'm talking about here, when I was looking at some of the commentary that we were doing on one of the shows that I was on, a partner of mine named Fatty, we were looking at the racist Nick Fuentes. Are you familiar with who he is?
Actually, no, I'm not, but please explain.
All right, so Nick Fuentes is a prominent white supremacist. So he was, matter of fact, remember a couple of years ago when Donald Trump had Kanye West come to the White House? Nick was one of the folks who met him there for dinner. So you had Nick, who is, I think he's Mexican, his background is Hispanic, but nonetheless, you had Nick and Kanye who had dinner with Trump. And this is about the time where Kanye was getting warmed up to where he was talking this nonsense. I can say anything racist I want about Jewish people and nothing will happen to me. You know, back when he had billionaire status, then as soon as he was out there talking all that anti-Semitic mess, they took all his endorsements away and he went back to being a millionaire from being a billionaire. Yeah, so that's that nonsense that you get talking that crazy.
He got the
right?
realization that remember who you really are.
Yeah.
Put you back in your place.
He got the memo. So for whatever reason, Kanye still thought he could talk that noise because he's making a certain amount of money and it wouldn't affect him.
No.
But the premises of what we were talking about, man, is how the younger generation of today, I'm talking about the late stage Generation Y, Generation Z. I think Generation Y, they just turned 30. Yeah, they just turned 30 this year. At least the ones, the youngest of Generation Ys. I'm talking about the ones who were born in 95. So you and I are Generation X. So we are 1965 to 1980. And then you have Generation Y that starts from 81 until 96, maybe 97. And then you have Generation Z, which goes from 98 to 2012 or 2013.
Okay.
So we've got some of them who are turning 30, some are turning 20. But the premise of what we're talking about here is that some of them have never really seen racism, in its full effect. And as a result, when you try and have conversations with them about what's happening nowadays, it's like, what are you talking about? There's no issue with racism. You guys just being too hyperbolic. You're getting overblown with it. And there was one young man, I'm trying to see what I did with his information. I could have sworn I saved that, but he made this statement that you see a lot in some of these conservative circles, especially those circles that have blacks in it. He made the statement, Blacks were better off under segregation.
That is the most absurd thing I've ever heard in my life. One of the most absurd things I've ever heard in my life. I
I'll
mean,
tell you what.
somebody's really oblivious and don't know don't know what it all entails, don't know what they're talking about. You know, uh, before
Go
making
ahead,
statements
speak on
like
it.
that, do your research first. Make a statement like that seriously. So I guess black people's better than slavery. Is that the next thing somebody going to say? It's best black people be slaves. It's best be spit on and put in shackles and be viewed as less than a human being. I mean, is that what we trying to go back to? We trying to think that we put back people back in that place back in that era. I mean, that's just absurd. I mean, it's racism is here. Is always going to be. I mean, it's all going to be here as far as I can see. It's all over the world. I mean, it's every place I've been. There's been racism there. Even in Africa, there's racism there. So this whole premises and thinking, I think these are people is probably a little more sheltered in their life and their dynamics. They don't know, but they don't know what they don't know, and they're speaking about what they don't know. And I think that's where the problem lies in.
I'd agree with that. And that's pretty much how I
That's
put it as well. But let's put it this way. You have two daughters, obviously. So, Eve, of course, she's white German. Now, the question I guess I'll throw
uh,
at you, man, what type of
uh,
conversations did you have with your girls about that being that they are interracial, that they're mixed? What's your thought on that as far as the conversation and how did they take it? How did they understand their place in the world?
so so my daughters understand it different. Put it that way. Even when they were with me in Virginia, and my oldest daughter, uh, she came. It was probably the first time I really had some other conversation with her about that. She was playing with some kids. We was living in Northern Virginia, right, the Loudoun County, Fairfax area. Um,
Is this
and
before we
one
were
little
living
girl.
across from each other or
This
after?
was this was this is when we came back from Germany. Before we had we were our separate ways per se. Um, Layla came back and was like, "Hey, one little girl there says she can't play with her no more. Her mom says she can't play with her no more." And she was like, "I think she said that because I'm brown." You know, this is my daughter telling me. Yeah, so little white girl. I mean, it's mainly white area, white people is there, all that over there. You feel the separatism there. Everybody stays in their place. There's no intermingling or anything like that. Everyone has their place. You
And
know.
this is Loudoun
So
County.
my Loudoun County. And my daughter's what, like 9 years old, 8 years old, 9 years old, and she's been growing up in. Most of the time, she's been in Germany, and besides that, or when she first grew up in the Hampton Roads area, which was different. There's a little more. There's more intermingling. It's not. You don't have that separatism there, but up in Northern Virginia, you do. And for my daughter to say that, you know, that said a lot. So, discussions about that. I mean, she has her little thing even in Germany. Um, and it's coming more from I think the older generations from there. People make certain comments, um, they may think it sounds nice, but it sounds very ignorant. Talking about her hair, her hair looks like a dog's hair, whatever. It's like, how's that really?
What?
How's that something that's a compliment to her that her hair, she has all like little poodle hair, like a dog hair. It's like, how's that really a compliment?
Poodle hair.
So, hmm, yeah, for
Poodle
Layla,
hair.
you know, yeah, yeah. So, she they going through that little spell. Obviously darker than everybody else there because in Germany, I mean, it's all Germans for the most part. Yes, but the good thing I would say is, I guess, a good thing for them is that they're not alone. There are other biracial kids there. You know, so they have people they kind of gravitate to and feel a certain way with. But I know, like my oldest, she likes kind of reach out for my cousin. Probably the only female granddaughter of my grandmother's grandchildren, and obviously she's like younger generation, close to my daughter's age. She reaches out to her is for the same fashion of being a female, being different, you know.
So
This is
ideally,
now. It's
even
going on right
though
now. So,
it's what you mean as what's going on right now.
mhm. Yep,
How about the youngest
this
man?
goes on right now. So my daughter, I mean, my youngest, she don't. I mean, she's a little more reserved. Elisa don't say too much. She's a little more reserved. You know, where Layla seems to be, she's embracing more who she is. Elisa, that's something that got a little man, do a little work with her. And this also goes with the piece I need to, as far as media a little more for her. For her to kind of open up about what she's really going through. I hear it more for Layla than Elisa. So we'll see. That's another journey.
Is she is the oldest? Is she going to be going back to school in the states? And if so, how much time has she spent on the ground here in America?
Layla's been in. She's born in New York, and Fort up in Watertown, New York, Fort Drum. Um, Lived in the States till we went back to Europe. I think when she was six. She was 5, 6 years old when we went to Europe. Came back to the States when she was like 10, 9, 10 years old. Came back to the States. Then she went right back to Europe. So um, I would say maybe about a good 7 years she spent in the States. But she registered herself as being American, not German, anything like that. And she does not want to be there. She want to come back to the U.S. So, um, yeah. So that's her plan. She's trying to come back. She want to go to school in the States. It's a work in progress right now. We're still having discussions about options and ways of doing things. And, she's going to start off school for sure in Europe for a little bit.
Right.
And then from there, move on to come back to the States. So, yeah. The little one,
Well,
Lisa, a little bit different right now because, I mean, she only been in the States for 6 months. Or most of her life been in Germany. So,
man,
she's kind of wait and see. She watch her big sister where she's going with her. You know, obviously move. Trying to go back and forth to, influence her to see where she'll find. So I need more time with Lisa. I think she's still. I think she still is maybe confused with things. So I need a little more time with her. I put it that way.
confused in what respect?
Well, I mean, it's only an assumption. I can't say. It's only an assumption because she's quiet. She don't say much. We talk about things here and there, type of friends she has. What does she do with her friends, and does she have any problems with her friends? Um, I know Layla's open about that. She'll talk about how some of the kids be acting at school. Germans look at anybody they looking like them is different, which happens in the States, happens everywhere. You look different, you get treated differently, whatever. I mean, but they say they have been treated differently. But um, yeah, Alicia doesn't say much. She don't say too much. So that's something more I have to do, more fathering for her I have to do.
So I guess in a sense, before we move on to the main topic here, but this is something good that I thought would be good conversation for folks who are raising kids right now in this environment. Because again, when you and I came up, I was born in 70. You said you were born what, 76?
76. Mm-hmm.
76. So you and I can
Mm-hmm.
still remember certain elements of society that was going on where when you probably got to be about five, which is what, 80, 81 or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
81. So yeah, it's still pretty
So
much going.
yeah. So on that rising topic, my childhood experiences, when I was younger, um, you know, if we talk about racism and stuff like that, when I first started out, I grew up in an all black area when I was really young. When I was
Yeah.
in New York, and even when I go to South Carolina, say my great grandmother and all that, my cousins go down. It's all black, right? South Carolina, the low country area of South Carolina. Matter of fact, I didn't see a white person until I think I was 10 years old. It was last summer, the summer I was in South Carolina, but right after we was moving from New York to move to Georgia, and I had cut my arm, tried to knock on a glass door. Just come back from Myrtle Beach from my great grandmother's church. I was staying with great grandmother since I was born. Every summer I was with my great grandmother in South Carolina, and was knocking on the glass door, and I broke the glass by accident, trying to get her attention, open the door. The door was locked, and it got cut. So she took me to see a doctor in Holly Hill. And the first time I saw anybody white there, everybody because everybody whole area is all black, right? So first time seeing somebody there who's white.
Where were you
You
living?
know, this is Holly Hill. This is in South Carolina,
Oh
Orangeburg
shit,
County, South Carolina.
South Carolina.
Hill
Okay.
Country.
Then we got
Yeah.
solid South state.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. South Carolina. Yeah. So my family come from. It's my mom's side, anyways. Father's side is something a little different, but um. So yeah, that was the first time I ever seen anybody white was them. But then I was had a culture shock going to Georgia because here I was in New York. I was in a predominantly uh, black neighborhood where I lived at school, primarily black. Only one's white is the teachers. You may have one or two white students in there, but the majority is black. Maybe one or two Hispanics, but it's all black. To go down to Georgia, Cobb County, it's all predominantly white. You get a sprinkle of black folks in there. We barely see any Latinos at all in there. I mean, zero was, so that was definitely a cultural adjustment to go to that, and um, yeah, I had my little struggles in a sense with that, belonging, finding my place, you know, um, and then obviously the racial stuff that definitely came about quite a few times when I was going through school from elementary to go to the high school. It was always something, um, and then I can go on and on about stories about that, but yeah, there's a lot of situations. So I'll let you take over that one. You ask me anything you want to ask about that piece. There's definitely some stories I can tell you about that. All the racial stuff I dealt with going through school.
So
Even with the
this is that
school,
time.
even with the school itself, man, it's just so it showed me that I am not. I am definitely different than all the other kids there. There's something you are not in the same category. That's for sure. So,
So I can remember when I look back that I tell folks that my brother and I were military kids. So being the
mhm.
fact that we were military kids, my father was in Vietnam. So he came back in, I want to say 67 or 68, married my mother in 69. Then my brother and I were born in 7. So he was part of that whole draft, the whole, what was that, Rolling Thunder, the Tet Offensive, all that type of stuff. My father, again, was part of the Vietnam experience. Now, when he got home, he worked in a factory for a little while. But before he tried to get back uh, in the Air Force, he
Mhm.
tried going back in the Army. So he couldn't go back in the Army. So eventually, he went enlisted again and got into the Air Force. And then we started traveling with him. So the first place we went with him to was in 1975, I want to say, um, Blythesville Air Force Base. And so this was in Little Rock, Arkansas in 1975, right? So now remember back in 57, when
Mhm.
the Little Rock Five first started going to school, you know,
Mhm.
once again, you and I were born directly after Jim Crow had stopped, or
Yep.
within like 8 to 10 years when Jim Crow had
10 years
finished.
within a decade. That
Yeah.
decade.
So I remember I was probably again about 5 years old or something like that. Children, we don't know color. We don't really look at it from that perspective. And I
No.
recall being outside playing, and there was me, a couple of little black kids, a couple of white boys, and a couple of little white girls. So one of the little white girls ran up over to me and said, "Ooh, I like you." And she was, holding my hand. So again, we're kids. I'm not looking at the color perspective. So we're just running around playing. And then, she reached, she just leaned over. I guess she kissed me because she saw her mom and dad kiss, kids. No, that little dumb shit did it right back. And so we played for the rest of recess. So then, we go
Mm-hmm.
back to school, go home, and then we come back to school the next day. So we're out in recess. I see her. So again, as a kid, I'm like, okay, let's go play. I go over to where she is, and she runs away. I didn't think anything about it. So I went over to where she was. I tried to run over and play with her again. She ran away. So I just left it at that and didn't think anything of it. And it was years later till I realized, again, it was 1975. No, I was a little black boy. She was a little white girl. She probably told her parents that she was playing with black kids and kissed one of them little ninjas. That's that's my thought process, man. She probably told, dude, kiss. No, you stay away from him. And there
I got
you
a
go.
story for that. I got a
Oh
story
yeah,
for that. All right. So this is, I think I was in the sixth grade. Was the sixth grade? I think it was. Yeah, I was in sixth grade, East Cobb in Georgia, sixth grade. That's when, I guess that time it was when kids would start, pulling everybody's pants down, right? Be funny, like put your pants down and stuff like that. You know, just playful stuff, right? Guys and girls, right? Everybody doing that, right? There was this one white girl in my class, right? She's sitting there, she had a bathing suit on underneath her clothes, right? Showing everybody like just little peeks here, here. See, I got a bathing suit on here, here, just showing it off, right? So I
in
went
the sixth
behind her.
grade.
Yeah, that's it. See, they're showing her bathing suit off. There's a little peeks here and there. So I went behind her and pull her pants down, right? Show her bathing suit. And she's like running around after me, playing with me, da, 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 da. This kid stuff, right? Just playing, playful. It was next day. We was in the, this was we did this. I think it was in a it was like in a woodshop class. We was in a woodshop class together. We also had English class together. Next day was an English class. We're playing around about that again. I didn't do anything, but she was coming at me again about that. Da, 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 da. It's playful. I'm gonna get you doing that. Da, da, da. It's playful. We were friends, really, right? And the teacher, white male teacher, white guy. I can't remember his name. He overheard us playing when we was talking. We was going about. So he pulled her aside and had a conversation with her. Right. Next thing you know, I'm getting called into the vice principal's office. Right. You there, brother? You there? Okay. I get called in the vice principal's office, and they're saying about I've been accused of whatever, pulling this girl's pants down. I said, hey, well, we were just playing. Nobody did anything horrific. She had a bathing suit on and she was showing everybody, peeking. I just pull her down to everybody else to see. It was just it's a play. It was playing. Nothing was serious. Well, because of that, they're going to suspend me from school, right? And oh, by the way, after I got suspended, I got a letter from the Cobb County schools about some kind of notification of sexual interactions, whatever.
Wait, time out. Cobb, as in, are you in Georgia? We're talking now in Georgia, Cobb
In
County,
Georgia.
Georgia.
Yeah, in
Oh,
Georgia. Cobb
I
County,
was
Georgia.
I was just telling everybody about Forsyth County, but I'll back down for a second and let you finish. You were probably the best example that I can
Yeah.
tell about. Go ahead,
So
man.
now so now I'm like identified as a potential predator, right? Like serious. I'm like in the sixth grade. So I saw there's some, other folks in there. This is the white kid, white boy, whatever. I told him what happened. He was like, "What?" I said, "I did that. Nobody said anything. Teachers see that, and nobody said nothing to me. We all do this all the time." I said, "Yeah, I guess it's a little bit different for you than it is for me, right? I guess I gotta get shown my place." So yeah, I was. They put me now. Supposedly, it only lasts until the time I'm done with middle school. I go to and the high school will go away. This record they put on me about sexual shit, right? Like serious, like this.
Wait, you had a record
I had a
as a sixth.
record in the sixth grade. I had a record. Why? Because I'm a black boy, and how dare I pull down a white girl's pants playing around in school, right? That's what it's all about. That was, I mean, she had no problem. We were playing. We were friends. We played, And I had nothing against her because she's just doing what any kid would do, is say what happened. That was it. You know, we were still friends afterwards. I had no real issues with her. But that teacher I showing up didn't like, had issue with him. That vice principal had issue with him because they made it into something that was not, it was not even the case. But, I was now marked. You know, you're different. You're not, learn your place. You know, so yeah, I had a record. So what happened to that after that? I don't know. I mean, obviously after again, I ain't, and my mom about, all upset. My stepdad want to damn not put a damn leg against my head. What the hell you doing, boy? You know you black, nothing like that. Blah blah blah.
Well,
Okay,
there's that talk, but you do know you're black, right? You got that talking too.
yeah. So yeah, I had that going on. So I was like, I ain't never do that again. Just okay. You know, that was a lesson. Um, when I was in high school, I was a freshman in high school. Um, we had this is more for a football team, right? So like it says predominantly white school, right? And the team, we had a few blacks on the team. The ones who did a lot of the work are the ones who was least showing out a lot. I mean, I'm taking away into the white kids. Some white kids did too, but there's a lot of black kids there doing some work on that team. And at the end of the year, they had, they do the papers, say, what a season was like, who did what, blah, blah, blah. They have an announcement on the intercom, the whole school to hear about it all, right? You look at the paper, and it's talking about nothing about no black people at all. It's all white kids. The announcements are all about white kids, all white, right? So, it's all black folks like, what's up with that, right? So I took it to my mom. I told my mom about that. So my mom got upset. She went there to talk to the principal about that, right? And I guess she told me a little couple words, whatever was said or whatever case may be. But all I know is that by the end of that week, that was changed. Now all of a sudden they mentioning everybody, what everybody did, and redoing this whole thing and mentioning black kids what they did too, you know. So that was another instance with the school. I didn't go into with the kids, dealing with some of the kids, how racial, interactions with them, and how was treated differently. I ain't going to that yet, but I'm just talking about this. This is the institution itself.
Now, what
So,
year is this we're talking about right now? Just to put some context, kind of reel it in a little bit.
uh, we talking. So like, I was a freshman in '89, I think it was in high school. So it was '90, I think, is when I started high school. So '90, I think it was '90, '91 was what the issue with the whole thing with not putting any black kids in there, any recognition for any black kids. It's just all about the white kids on the football team. Knowing very well that so many black kids is making an impact and doing something on this team. This completely ignored us, right? And then with the incident in middle school, that was in late '80s, so like '87, maybe '86, '80. No, it had to be like '87, '88, 87, '88, I think it was.
Okay,
Yep.
I was about ready to graduate. If I let
Mhm.
me step in for a second because you made me think about something about school here. Now,
Okay.
you went. So, did you attend public school for majority of the time that you were growing up?
Pub- Public school, always public school.
All right. So myself, I was sometimes in public school for a year or two here. If my father was on a remote, like if you have to go to Korea or something like that, Osan, Suwon, or Taegu, back in the
Hmm.
day. But when he was back in the States, I think when we first went to after we left Little Rock with him, we went to Minot, North Dakota for about 4 years. I'm
Yeah.
talking like maybe 78 from 1978 until 82. So I'm talking 30 minutes on the Canadian. Man, you want to talk about cold? Bruh, from the time I was up there, we're talking about Casey Kasem, Willie Nelson, Waylon Jennings, anything you want to know about it, man, I was stuck up there with it. But to
Hmm.
thing about that, like I said, though, so I'm going back a little bit further. You were still, hell, your shit was still yellow when I was going to grade school. We're talking about 77, 78, right? So I
Yeah.
can remember one of the summers. where I was at the base swimming pool. Now again, this is before the 80s, right? This is like 78, 79, and I'm swimming and I bump into this little white kid. So you figure like I'm 6 feet. So you and I about what, 6 feet, six, something like that.
I
So
just
back,
about 5'11". My half an inch, little inch shorter. Around the
yeah.
same though.
So we're about the same though. So imagine I'm about 5'4", 5'4", 5'5", and there's this little
Mm-hmm.
white kid I bumped into, and it was an
Mm-hmm.
accident. All right. So
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Oh, excuse me," and he just out of nowhere, "Your mom is a black nigger," just out of nowhere. Now I started to put his head underwater right then and there, but instead I said, "Fuck you! Ain't nothing you're gonna do about this." And so we just went our separate ways. But it was just casual. It just rolled off his lips like it was nothing. Now here's
I
the
got some.
thing.
Go ahead. You
Be-
finish that. I got some for that too. Go ahead.
Now because of the fact that I growing up in the mixed society. Now here's the other thing about that.
Yeah.
So as you know, growing up on a base, even though I guess when I met you, and your oldest was still,
She was a
your oldest
baby.
was like, yeah, she was a baby at the
Four.
time,
Yeah,
three
three,
or four.
4 years old, something
Yeah,
like
something
that.
like. So you figure at the time you guys were living across the street from me. We weren't living in base housing because we were living
Yeah.
behind Fort Eustis. Now
Yep.
me, I've grown up. I've spent about maybe 85% of my life living on an Air Force installation. So that
Yeah.
means that I was around black, I was around white, I was around Asian,
Mm-hmm.
Hispanic. That was just typical life for me. So I could
Mm-hmm.
go stay over at my white friend's house. My white friend would come over and stay at my house, or me and a white friend would go stay over at one of our Hispanic friends' house, and it was nothing. That's literally just how life was with me. Now I remember
Mm-hmm.
being in school though, so you always heard kids testing words. All right, they're
Yep.
testing, and I remember there was one kid. I was probably in the fifth grade, so this is probably around 80, 79 or maybe 80. And I remember being in class and just for whatever reason, you know, bumped into him. I talked to this kid all the time. This is back in the day where you had math, social studies. Remember, it was called social studies. It wasn't called history.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Math, social studies, science, all that was taught in one classroom by one teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I remember one day he just said, "Oh, nigger swirl." I'm like, "Nigger swirl," and he's like, "Yeah, nigger, nigger, nigger." Just kept saying it, and I'm more or less looking at him like you're an idiot. Like, why would you sit here and say some dumb shit like that? Now, all the other kids, remember now, we are kids who are growing up in the military, and
Mm-hmm.
we're not out here with our cousins who are in
Mm-hmm.
like Forsyth County, Cobb County, Pulaski,
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee. We're not growing up where you have that us and them separation. We're always around each other. And I remember one little girl saying, "Wow, his dad is a racist, obviously." I said, "Yeah, you can tell by the way that he's speaking. Yeah, he's an idiot." So we didn't really associate with him. But I remember he was also the kid that when we got ready to say the Pledge of Allegiance, because remember how you had to say the Pledge of Allegiance
Yep.
uh, before class started? He
Yep.
would
For
say,
class start.
"I don't believe in such and such," my family. So he would always go outside of the classroom when the Pledge of Allegiance was recited. And then he would come back in afterwards. But I remember just listening to him like nigger swirl, just saying it over and over as if he thought he was going to get some type of reaction out of me. Now, because of the fact that I was not back in Tennessee around my cousins, around my peoples, my reaction wasn't what you would get if now, let's say you and I are downtown. I don't know. Let's say we're in Marietta, something like that, or just an area,
Mm-hmm.
just something, and then you got a group of white kids who pull up in a pickup truck.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about, you know how it is. Whereas one person told me when he was 8 years older than me, a partner of mine in the military, he said they made sure that they never stood next to the street at a bus stop. And I said, "Why?" Because you don't know his words. His words, not mine. He said, "You don't know how long the white boys have been pissing inside of a bucket, ready to throw it on somebody." And sure
Oh
enough,
wow.
he says, so there was a girl, her parents were military. She grew up on a military installation, but her dad had just gotten out of the military and she was now living around the civilians for the most part because he was from that area of Georgia.
Yeah.
So they were getting ready for school, and she's standing at the bus stop next to the street. And this
Yeah.
is my big brother Tony Lucas. Shout out, big brother Tony Lucas. So Tony was
Yep.
saying, "Hey, you better get your ass away from that street." She's like, "What are you talking about? I'm just standing here waiting for the bus. What could happen?" And just like whoa, fade whatever. Bunch of white kids in a pickup truck came by and say, "Hey, how you doing?" She said, "Hi," and right before he left, picked up a bucket of piss and threw it at him. So he said, "You didn't know how long they've been pissing in the bucket." But she got hit with it. He said, "Hey, you might want to take your ass home and get a bath and go get a tetanus shot because you don't know how long they've been pissing in this bucket." So this was something that the black
Mhm.
kids knew that went on in that area. This was just behavior, but the thing is that everybody knows who everybody is. They know what side of town that they're from. They know who they should and should not speak to. So now
Yeah.
that is an environment that I myself never grew up. But when I came home in 1982, when my father went to Korea for about a year or so, that was when I had a chance to actually be around kids who had not grown up in the military, and I actually
Mhm.
saw not this I won't say manufacture, but this bottom tier racism to where you go back
Mhm.
and you get top shelf shit. So I'll land my plane right there real fast, man, because I know you had something that you wanted to mention and add to that. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was in the seventh. I think it was the seventh or eighth grade playing basketball. You get the with the um your PE time, right? In the time PE, we playing basketball. Was playing was playing half court. It was like was it 3-on-3 or something like that. There's one kid kept on like just fouling, keep being aggressive. He's pushing me, this, that, right? To the point I got pissed off, right? He like I felt he hit me, so I hit him back. Then he tried to hit me again, and I started wailing on him. And then he said, go ahead, beat me up. I get enough people to wipe out your whole race." Stop. It's like what the fuck? It's just shocked that somebody would say something like that. I get enough people to wipe out your entire race. Yeah. I was like, yeah, I stopped. I just more in shock. I didn't say anything. I just in shock. At that point, was done. The players walked off. Later on, the boy came to me and apologized to me for what he said. But I mean, the apology has no meaning because you said
Said
exactly
and
what's
done.
really on your heart. It says exactly who you are, right? There's no reason, no need to say something like that. Why are you putting a game of basketball? You fouling me, you get a little aggressive, and I'm coming, whatever. You gonna make a statement like that? You gonna wipe out my entire race? You know? So you there?
Yeah, man, I'm still here. This is my camera
Okay.
bug.
Yeah, this when you mentioned about that, it kind of reminded me of that time dealing with some of these kids when I was growing up, racist stuff. And then scenario with the thing with the kids and the white kids in the pickup truck. I remember one time coming back from a friend of my house. At least I thought at the time I thought he was my friend. I mean, I think he was a more misguided kid. But anyways,
What
walking
was
on
it?
the
White?
street,
Black?
he was white. He was a white kid, white boy,
Okay.
right? So white kid. He was a little misguided, and this and me and my own ignorance as a child, he tried to be playful, call me nigger, right? Being playful, right? Me and my ignorance as a child, not speaking up about that, but his parents, at least his parents did, his stepdad
He
did.
thought it was playful calling somebody here.
Yep, and at least his father did. His father,
Oh
said he don't
man.
say nothing like that. Well, he don't mind. No, I don't mean he don't mind. He don't say nothing like that. It's a horrible thing to say, right? So his dad and mom got on him real bad about that. So, but that's a here or there. But walking back from his house, um, some good old boys in a pickup truck. They all got that same look on their face. I don't know, man. It's just it's race. They racist. They got that same look on their face. You know, and they look both of them. They all looking at me coming down that road, driving that pickup truck, bypassing me. They ain't throwing it at me. Thank God they ain't doing throwing it at me, but they definitely gave me the middle finger. They definitely gave me a middle finger driving
Like,
by. Right? They gave me that middle finger. Exactly. Exactly. They were staring me down the whole way, and they just gave me middle finger going by. So I gave everybody about that piece. You know. Um, yeah. So.
so I'll wrap this. I'll drop one on here, you man. Then I'll go ahead and show you the premise of what I'm talking about. But I remember I was 13 years old. Again, I think I mentioned to you that my father had gone TDY, or not TDY,
Mm-hmm.
but he gone remote for a year. So he was doing his 1 year remote. And I remember I was playing baseball during this time period. And I remember one of the kids, never forget this kid. His name was Charlie Coffey. If you want to
Okay.
talk about just where, have you ever seen where when black people, we know what one of ours looks like, where he's just poor,
Yeah.
and we see that, and blacks more or less become more accustomed to that depending on the town you come from, right? But
Mm-hmm.
have you ever seen what happens when middle class whites are with black people that they're kind of looking down on, and then one of theirs shows up? Talking about the dirty, where you got the car, the rust is coming off the doors, barely staying shut. You got 3 or 4 kids, the dirty faces, clothes are torn, the everything is like second or third hand down or something like that. That's what he was. But the crazy thing is that I've known this kid on and off for about maybe uh, 10, 15, about 10 years or so, because we were home sometimes, we were gone sometimes. When my father was stationed at different places, we come home for the summer. Sometimes they drop us off. We stay 2 or 3 months, and then we go back to North Dakota, wherever we were. Well, this one particular time, we were having a conversation before our baseball game started, and he was talking about something that had happened when he was playing baseball someplace else. He said, "Yeah, man, I remember that there was something that was going on inside the school, and this, his words, this old nigger principal came up to me, and I'm standing there with everybody else. It's like this old nigger principal, like it was nothing. But again, this is that time frame that we came from. We talk about the racism. It was just no big deal to behave like that because, as you said before, you and I were born just between 5 to 10 years after Jim Crow was
Mm-hmm.
abolished. Now, so you still had whites who had that behavior. I don't care what laws are in place. If you're still black and I'm still white, I'm still better than you. Because
Exactly.
one of the things my parents used to say is that my brother and I, you had more than the average black child, but as much as the average white child. So consider yourself lucky because you had an opportunity to see certain things in life that many of your friends would not. So that was why it was wild to me. I was telling some folks a story the other day, to whereas when you see people who have grown up just from K through 12 in one spot, who have not grown up on a military installation, me listening to their stories, like, God damn. But at the same time, I wasn't oblivious to it because when I went home to see my grandparents in Tennessee, that's when I got my wake up call about certain
Yeah.
things. Yeah, I even had it to the point that even the blacks would call my brother and I Oreos because of the way that we
Mm-hmm.
talked, the fact that we just didn't do things the way that they did. They called us strange. Now I'm not going to say
Mm-hmm.
weird because the everyone uses weird in the wrong way. Weird does not mean what they think it means. It means uncanny or supernatural. So when they say, "Oh,
Yeah.
this is weird," are you weirdo? Like, no, that's not what the word means. So I tell people instead, no, you mean strange or odd. But we were treated differently, and people thought we were strange because of how we spoke and how we acted. But even amongst
Mm-hmm.
blacks, my brother and I didn't really have a space to go with. But now let's go ahead and shift gears. Television.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say 2 words and then go ahead and let it rip.
Okay.
Archie Bunker.
Oh, Archie Bunker. That's a classic, like, old racist man. That was. I mean, we all watched Archie Bunker. I mean, I grew up on watching Uncle Archie Bunker, but I mean, it's he's old racist guy. You know, It wasn't. I mean, they didn't make it too obvious, but they did make it very obvious. Dude was racist as hell, you know. So I mean, what do you want to know about him besides that? Yeah, interesting things, interesting topics. He's set in his ways, old crusty white man. That's why I always looked at him as. But he was funny.
Right. So the thing here is that I was telling some kids, when you look at television nowadays, it is
Mm-hmm.
not the TV that you and I grew up on for the most
No,
part. It's not
it's
the
completely
TVI that
different.
our parents came up on because of the fact the racial environment that we grew up in. Like, listen, you and I are telling stories about people just being down on the street, yeah, nigga, just like it was nothing. Just talk
Yeah.
because that is what society was at that point in time. I was telling some young cats,
Mm-hmm.
on a panel that I was
Mm-hmm.
on earlier tonight, that they have no concept of what life used to be like because they have not seen it. And if that's the case, then what they were pushing when we were coming up and when we were doing our thing also, it worked. Because
Yeah.
if you don't see anyone on TV cutting up the way that we get ready to show some stuff right
Yeah.
now, and have
Yeah.
people behaving to you towards that, just outright, nigga this, nigga that, and just all up in your face and accosting you in certain ways, that means I was trying to tell them the measures that were taking place back in the 60s up to now, they were working. And I
Yeah.
told them it's the enforcement mechanisms. 1964, the Civil Rights Act. 1965, the Voting Rights Act. Then
Mm-hmm.
you also had affirmative action. You had
Mm-hmm.
Operation Push. And then you had, I think, also the Department of Justice opened up the Civil Rights Division, where they were where their job was to inspect civil rights violations, things of that nature. That a lot of kids, or I shouldn't call them kids, but younger adults in their late 20s, 30s, they have no concept of it. So when you try to have a conversation about what's happening in the world right now, it's like, don't mean nothing to me because I can still go out and, kick it with my white friend, or I can go out with this white girl, or, me and the fellas, we can go over to this particular club, we can go to this side of town. So no, it's not as pervasive as that per se just yet.
Mm-hmm.
The trying to get them to understand that there are measures that are going into place right now that are being unbound, but it's all baby steps right now. But ultimately, what's happening here is that we're going to see a move being made towards unraveling the rights that we have that have been achieved in the last 50 years, the achievements. And that's one of the things that I'll probably have to get another show on, to where it's during the daytime where I can get a few
Yeah.
more of the folks on the panel to be a part of this. But we'll look at this as being the entry level. But basically, what I'm saying here is that a lot of these kids have never seen what racism really looks like. Now, it's still there, it's systemic, but they're not seeing the Ku Klux Klans, burning crosses in the yards. They're not getting the stories on the radios about someone who did not come home, walked from work one night, and then finding their bodies in the ditch, beaten up. They're not seeing the stories where somebody in Pulaski County, of course, being a black man we're talking about, was found hung in a tree. They're not hearing those type of stories that you and I would hear about growing up. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
eventually, because of the fact that more and more law enforcement were enforcing the law, not as much as they should have, but still they were doing some things about it. A lot of that started tapering down toward the late 80s, going into the 90s. Now, the last
Yeah.
time that I remember a real story, important story that was worldwide, I can't remember if the man's name was James Bird or not, but this was in 96 or 97 in Jasper, Texas. Let me know if you remember this. Um, he was walking home. He had worked late at a restaurant, and there was a truck of white guys he drove by. One of them, they said, "Hey man, you need a lift home." I said, "Yeah." Somewhere between the time they got him in the truck and by the time before he died, they had tied him to a chain,
And
threw
drag
him,
him.
yeah, took him out, and drug him.
I
They
remember
drug
that.
him. Well, you remember that? They drug him
I
to
remember that.
where body parts were falling off. And this was
Yeah.
1997.
I
And
remember
I was
that.
in Germany. Well, yeah, so this type of stuff. So you had that last push where the Ku Klux Klan, I want to say back in the mid or late '80s, they've been
I think that was
sued.
I think that was East Texas that happened in. It's
Yeah, that
East
happened
Texas.
in East Texas. It was Jasper,
Yeah.
Texas. But
Hmm.
back up until about maybe 10 years prior to that, you
Hmm.
had court rulings where the Ku Klux Klan was starting to lose money. They were getting hit in their financial wares because of stuff that was going on, to the point that they lost an entire compound and had to pay roughly about 2 to 4 million. I'd have to go back and find the article, but I recall there were some areas where they were seeking restitution for some of the crimes that the Klan was participating in. But you still
Hmm.
had a lot of that was going on at a point in time, and when I talk to some of the young brothers, when it comes up about this, they're surprised. For example, I told them about I remember watching a shot from Inside Edition or some type of show that was showing an old white guy who was calling his dog. So you had black people who happened to be outside, and always just again, racism was more pervasive back in the
Yeah.
middle of the late '80s, and so before it really started dying down. He was like, "Nigger, come here." Everybody looked around. Who are you talking to? Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm just calling my dog. And the dog came over. He named dude named his dog nigger, so he can call out. And then people are like, "Oh, wait, no, I'm just calling my dog." But you know why he did it? I mean, obviously, you know
Hmm.
damn well why he did it. But again, this is that funny. That racist thought it was funny. Now, they may not try too much of that nowadays because the saying that has come up in the last, what, 15 or 20 years, I am not my ancestor. So there's been some kind of that. But anyway, man, let me see here. Let's go ahead. So basically what I what I put up here, if you see it scrolling, y'all ain't seen racism. But what I wanted to do is give people a shot and let them see what racism looked like back in the days on television, because it was constant. Matter of fact, let me do this. Yeah, let's go ahead and pause the music. So we mentioned Archie Bunker, right?
Archie Bunker. Archie Bunker show.
Okay. Let me see. So I'm getting my myself accustomed with this stream yard. So work with me here. Work with me.
Mm.
All right. So let's just do the entire screen. Let's not even worry about it. All right. So if you can, man, let me know if you can see my screen. Just let me know anytime here. All right. So if you start hearing any reflections, man, or anything like that, go ahead and just mute us if you need to. All right.
Let's see.
So just a second. Let me see if I can get this straight here. All right. So
Nah, not
are
showing
you
up
able?
yet.
All right. Just a second. Work with me. Work with me. So let me stop that. I may have to do the tab here. Screen. Uh, Tell you what, I'll put it on my screen because I'm taking it. You still can't see it as of yet, right?
No, it looked like it wants to display something. It phases out our video. It goes to the black screen. It goes right back.
Okay, so well, I'll just do it this way. I'll just put it over me. I'm just gonna go ahead and just overlay it over me. Then, if that's the case, that's
Okay.
probably the best way to do this. We'll just overlay it over me.
Okay.
Yeah, so it may look kind of weird here for a second, but yeah, will put you over here. So again, this is, as I was saying, you and I grew up in the age of Archie Bunker. And Archie Bunker,
Yes.
for those of you who are not familiar with that, Archie Bunker was one of the biggest racists of the time. But the
Mm-hmm.
thing here with Archie Bunker is that he was supposed to be funny.
Mm-hmm.
And because of him being funny, at least that's how it was construed here. Let me add it to the stage. There we go. All right, there we go.
Yep.
So again, for just a premise here, Archie Bunker was what people called back in the day a lovable racist. Now, there's
Mm-hmm.
nothing lovable about a racist for anyone who's still watching here. But the thing here is that he was the reflection of a lot of the folks that D and I are talking about, who are just real casual about their racism. They don't think anything of it because that's what they grew up with. And, so be it. That's just how they were. No one corrected it. It was a lifestyle, and people who lived around them knew when, I've had enough. I'm going to leave. Or if you had an argument, you had your argument. Maybe there may be fisticuffs every now and then, but that's what Archie Bunker reflected back in the 70s. He was that guy that you'd have a conversation with who was racist, didn't think he was racist, but wouldn't hesitate to call you, ninja or something like that, or colored or something, because that's just how he grew up. But anyway, fair use, fair use. Let me know, man, if you can hear this.
Okay then.
The Estradas are thinking it over. You and Henry are trying to find somebody else to buy the house.
You don't call. Can you hear that?
Yep, I hear it.
All right. So also, just to make mention, folks, the white guy you see right there, Ivan Reitman. Now that's Mike. Mike's character was put on the show to make sure that he could balance things out. So when Archie's racism got out of control, you had the guy who's supposed to be the nullifier, who is there, who's going to kind of even things out and speak truth to power. So basically, if Archie was talking about a certain class of folks, Mike's job was, oh, no, hold up, Archie. Now, you don't really know that about these people. They could be just like you and I, normal folks, but that's what Mike's and Gloria's role was on the show.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Fair use, fair use.
Yep. Yep.
Wait, what? Are you serious?
Yep.
But, again, all right, folks, just in case you don't know, this is what Sunday nights were like in America before syndication, when Archie Bunker started coming on Mondays or Tuesdays in the evening. But on Sunday nights, I want to say it was Sunday nights, everybody gathered around for Archie Bunker. And then a few years later, you had the Jeffersons. And then you had a few more lineups one day at a time. So Sunday got to be a nice setup. But again, this is typically the type of stuff that we heard listening to Archie Bunker. All right, so let me go ahead and drop another one in here. So we don't need that. We've already played that. So we can get rid of that. All right, so once again, this is, again, Archie Bunker's casual racism, as you see here. All right, fair use, fair use.
Dear officer, I want to thank you for coming over, and thanks for coming over so fast.
Okay. Oh, there is one other thing.
Yeah?
You know that colored guy that was here before?
Yeah?
You know him pretty good?
Yeah, he's a neighbor. Why?
Is he really coming back with those foot-long hot dogs?
Yeah, he'll be back with them, okay?
You know, I gave him $5.
Oh, no, don't worry about that. He's one of the good ones.
Oh, good.
One of the good ones.
Hey, I'll drop him off there myself. Thanks a million. Thanks for coming.
One of the good ones. Colored guy over here. Hey, I even tell you the story. I had another story I could tell you. That the color that they kind of remind me of something. When I was going to Warrant Officer Candidate School in Enterprise, Alabama, right? So it's Alabama, right? So we all know there's Alabama's Alabama. Some areas there, there's this time stood still. So candidate school, you always go through in the cycle, you go through a car wash. You go to a car wash for like a donation to help pay for your graduation dinner, right? So we had a car wash going on, washing, locals come on base, bring the cars in. all the candidates out there washing cars. So it's washing cars, and then one of the white candidates, classmates of mine, guy came to me and said, "Hey, they got up in front, man." He said to watch. He said to watch you, watch that colored guy wash in the car, right? Watch him, make sure. So I'm like, what? Man,
Watch
call
the
me
colored
colored.
guy washing the car.
Yeah, like, watch out for this dude. Like, watch out for this colored guy. I'm like, what? It's like serious. Yeah. And so, okay, whatever. I call me. I mean, call it nigger plenty of times, but it's the first time being called colored. But then I got up on the other guy's pickup truck, whatever. Washing the truck off, whatever. He's like, get up on top of there, boy. Get up on there, boy. I'm like, what the hell? I'm a damn boy. So, but I mean, I brought it to the cadre, and they just passed it off. Hey, don't worry about it, blah, blah, blah. That's how it is, Same instance how we watched this Archie Bunker, right? That's just how life was. There, that's how real life is. They do things like that, and most people just brush that stuff off, right?
Hey boy, hey boy, come here
Yep.
for a second, boy.
Yeah.
I I remember there was a black guy that my father knew, and I'd asked him one day. He was maybe about if I was 8. I mean, my father was 20. My dad was like maybe 30, about 30 years
Mhm.
old. So this guy was the same age, but his son was probably like 4 or 5. So I asked the guy one day, "Hey, how old's your boy?" And I remember he
Mhm.
said, "You, my son. He's not my boy. My son is 5 years old." And again, I did not put it together until years later when I thought about why he was so distinct. Because I recall the fact that when I said boy, the way he responded, like, he is not my boy, he is my son. Now
And I
think
and
about
I have some, and I got something with that too. Go ahead, finish what you're saying. I got something with
yeah.
that too.
So yeah, so again, the way how they call blacks boys and
Yeah,
grown women, hey girl, come here for a second. But I'll land the plane, man. What you got? Drop it.
yeah. So this is that's how I was playing football. I was in middle school, so I think I was in the 8th grade, and we played this private school, Westminster, right? It's private school in Atlanta, whatever, right? It's Milestone. We had our 8th grade, our 7th grade and 8th grade team in middle school. I mean, we only lost one game out of 2 years. We were pretty good team, and I was playing defensive line, and I was did my piece, and one of the fathers, right? He was white country boy, whatever. He said to my stepdad, like, "Hey, that boy did a good old job, blah blah blah." My stepdad got pissed off, right? Hey, you don't call me no damn boy. By the boys there, like, oh, at the time I didn't like, whoa, like a little bit aggressive, I thought. But then later on, same note, I realized, he calling me a boy, you know, like black people, black men are just boys. And even as not saying you were a boy, but you're black, you're a boy. You never be a man. You're not a man. You're not a human being. You know. So yeah, I'm that reminded me of that note when I was 7th, 8th grade. Yeah. I'm like, at the time I'm hearing it like, hey, he's giving me a compliment, like, I did a great job. But no, except that the underlying piece what he was saying, was calling me out as a boy, you know.
Yep.
So
Step
yeah,
back and think about all those instances. Again, this is why I talked about our parents had
yeah,
seen things. Therefore, if they hear, oh no, that's not what this is intended to be. So,
yeah,
example I can recall where my father was. I think we're in Jackson, Tennessee, at a park one day, and one
mhm,
of his friends that happened to be in the area who went to college with him, or who he was looking to go to college with, they bumped into each other and they were having a conversation, and they
yeah,
talked about how the description of blacks had been changing for a while. So the reason I say
mhm,
this is because at the time we're talking maybe 1975, 76. This is
yeah,
now where blacks wanted to be addressed as Afro American. So I
mhm,
know anyone who checks this out during the replay, they hear this conversation, it's not going to register to them because most or the majority of the kids nowadays are familiar with African American or black. But before that, it was nigger. We know that it was
Yeah.
nigger. Then was
Negro was official.
wait for it
Yeah.
because I put it in order. It was nigger first. Then
Mm-hmm.
it was nigra.
Mm-hmm.
Then it was negro.
Mm-hmm.
Then it was colored.
Mm-hmm.
Then it was Afro American.
Mm-hmm.
Then it became African American. And then after that, blacks. They more or less put it down and say blacks. There was a clip from Fat Albert that I wanted to put in also, talked about racism. But nonetheless, I may link that to a different video after this. But that was the progression of the names that we had come from. But I
I think
remember at the time where we were still Afro Americans. I can still remember that on paper.
I think well, Black Americans came in before earlier than that. I mean, remember now James Brown was pushing that, song "Black and I'm Proud," right? That was back in what? That song came out in
It's like mid '60s.
it was that far back. I thought it was in the '70s. He
Or
wrote that song. I
say
gotta look that
oh
up.
wait, say I'm back. Well, it could have been early '70s, maybe
I think it was in
late
the
'60s, mid
'70s.
'70s,
Yeah,
possibly. I could be
yeah.
off, and I
James
probably
Brown
am.
was saying, no confusion. Hey, I'm black and I'm proud.
Again,
And that's when that
that
song
falls
came out.
right in.
Hmm. And that's when it was really we say we're black. So I mean, the whole premise is that racism is there. It's always been there. I mean, it's this all's happening now. This is the old. These folks here, they they're more silent with it. They don't do like openly in place like it was when we growing up.
It's
It's
not as
more.
overt anymore.
Exactly. It's all under. It's right under the surface.
It's all
Right.
code.
That's all it is. All code under the surface. You didn't realize, and it's still there. They're not putting out there in your face because it's not politically correct, right? But they know that's what they understand. This is what is correct, and they're teaching their children, their children's children, and it's all be passed down. That these people are different. They're not like you. You have this, that, and the other. So it's always there. And in these instances now, it's kind of coming out to show that yeah, it is there. It's going to be there. It ain't going nowhere. So um, I think people now are a little confused with it because they don't know that piece. They don't know how we grew up or our parents grew up. How much worse was even beyond that. They're thinking that okay, the times are better now. It's like that then. Oh, okay, it's not out on the surface. It's not in your face right now, but it's there. It's always underneath the surface. It ain't going nowhere. Either that racist person back then is not teaching their children how they should be addressed, how they should be, who they stay away from, who they think they are. All that's being passed down. They just tell them, hey, you can't say it out there like you used to no more. I used to say it. You got to be careful who you say it to, or what you got to do. It's always been there, just right underneath the surface. And certain tactics and stuff has been done to ensure that it's held in place. You know,
Yep.
so
Let's go ahead and jump back in. I got this next one. I think is where, oh yeah, here's where he gets going. So this one is about Archie Bunker on a rant about immigrants. Again, folks, this is what television was like all the time back when D and I were growing up in the 70s and 80s. All right. Very
History lesson. You don't know nothing about Lady Liberty standing there in the harbor with her torch on high, screaming out to all the nations in the world, send me your poor, your deadbeats, you filthy. And all the nations sent them in here. They come swarming in like ants. Your Spanish PRs from the Caribbean there. Your Japs, your Chinamen, your Krauts and your Hebes, and your English fans. All of them come in here, and they're all free to live in their own separate sections. Where they feel safe, and they bust your head if you go in there. That's what makes America great.
mm. That's what makes America
Whoa,
great.
whoa! Is that madness or what? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but hey, there's more. Now this one right here. There's more. Hey, fair use. Fair use.
Well, pardon me asking, but does your husband do a lot of the cooking over your house?
He does all of it. He loves it.
Oh, well, ain't you a little afraid of what people could think?
You mean that I'm a lazy wife?
No, that he's a fag.
Prime time television.
Yep.
D, do I lie? I don't need to lie. This we're looking at it. This is what was common on television. So it took me a minute. I had to look around for this one, man. So this right now, do you remember the skit that Chevy Chase did with Richard Pryor? I know you must have seen it in your lifetime at some point in time. It was called the Word Association Game.
Play it for me. Remind me.
All right, fair use, fair use. Yo, and remember that was television all the time.
Mm-hmm.
All the time. And there was, let me see, there's another one. I remember when that episode aired, man. I can recall just laughing at it at the time, but still I knew that it was serious though because of what was happening. That was Saturday Night Live used to be mad crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And the stuff I want to say that Eddie Murphy didn't help when he came to it because there was matter of fact, I've got one I'm getting ready to gin up, but there was another one where he had a song that he was singing. Obviously, yeah, I'm not gonna sing it. I am not gonna sing it because yes, all right. So I just want to put it right there, right now. Nope, ain't gonna do it. But I'll just make it known right now that this was the humor of Saturday Night Live before they made some corrections to it. All right, so this first one right here, I think this came out November of '82. And so I'm not going to play all of it, but you'll get the gist of it. All right. So once again, fair use, fair use. This is Eddie Murphy as Tyrone Green, and they're singing at an elk lodge. Fair use. Yo, I told you, no chill. Saturday Night Live used to go out with some craziness, man. It was absolute craziness. All right, so again, before I roll the next one, I'm just letting you guys know right now. Again, this is the type of television that was on, and we haven't even gotten to the Jeffersons, but I guess you get the point here. Is that because of the racial climate back then, watching racist activity on TV to this level, it was programming for the most part. It was what a lot of us who grew up as Generation X, this is what we're accustomed to seeing at any given time, because if we walked out our front door, whatever that we're watching on television, or at least on these YouTube clips right now, that is the life that we saw outside our doorways.
Yep.
All right, here we go again. Fair use.
No, no, don't let me down. No, 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 no. Don't let me down. Time and time, time and time, let me down. one and only until I read the news. Well, now I'm sad and lonely since I put down the juice. We have so much in common because we've both been so oppressed. All right. We both have big noses and gold chains on our chest. I want to sing, please now. Don't let me down. I'm begging you, please. Don't let me down. I'm down on my knees. Well. Don't let me down. Time me down.
Oh man, so damn. All right, so
Eddie did a lot of his best work back then.
do you really think, now ask yourself, do you think anything like that could be played on television today? On just regular television, ABC,
No,
NBC,
somebody's gonna have offense to that. No, it
there
wouldn't.
you go.
It would be politically correct. Somebody would definitely say something about that. All that for sure.
This is too damn offensive to be allowed in today's. You just couldn't do it. Now here's something. We'll take a quick dive here because these last two are going to kind of set the stage for the outro here. But I'll let Roland Clark do his damn thing on the end here. But before we do that, Lee Atwater. Now he was part of the Republican machine back in the day. Now Lee had been in the Republican Party. I want to say since the late 50s, early mid 60s or so. And remember, we talked about coded language, certain things you could not say. Now, I mentioned earlier this evening to some of the young men about the Southern strategy and what the Southern strategy was, dating back to the 1860s. It was a way that the Southern Democrats at the time, who were the racists, because the parties have switched ideology since then. But the Republicans were the ones who freed the slaves, or actually it was the radical Republicans who were responsible for putting the measure in place for freeing the slaves. But anywho, the Southern strategy was a technique that was used to reach out to those Southern Democrats, aka slave owners, to make sure that you got them on their side. You appealed to them, to the language that they understood, which was racism, oppression, states' rights, immigration, the language that they understood that let them know, work with us. We're on your side. If you need to vote with anyone, vote with us. So Lee Atwater got caught in an interview discussing the Southern strategy that had been updated and was being utilized in the American Party right about the time, shortly after Reagan had gone into office. I think Reagan was elected in 80, so 81, yeah. So he was one of the folks who was responsible for getting the game plan together. But I want you to listen to this. All right. So what we're talking about now, we're talking about the Republican Party as it is to this day. Primarily that you have all the Southern Democrats up until 1964-65, who were the racists. They left the party. At least the largest exodus was right after the signing of the Civil Rights Bill in 1964. Strom Thurmond, hey, racist to the core here. He was one of the primary folks who were part of the Dixiecrats who were trying to win election right before Eisenhower did, because of the fact that the Democratic Party was now looking at endorsing and supporting civil rights. Now, the civil rights action, or the migration of blacks from the Republican Party, began in 1927-28, or at least the reason began in 1927-28 because of Herbert Hoover. He was the Secretary of Commerce at the time. This is before he became president. Calvin Coolidge was the president at the time. You had the flood of 1927 in Mississippi. And because of this flood, the levees broke in multiple places where you had 23,000 square miles, or 23,000 what's that? Was not miles, but
Kilometers.
uh, what do they call it? I want to say hectares, but nonetheless, you had multiple towns. Let's say within a 23-mile area. Put it that way. But it was significant to where you had flooding, where people were moved into little in the areas that were higher ground into these little tent cities or these encampments. And while these encampments, the government was actually paying the people who lived on the land who had lost everything due to the flood. So you're talking about the white landowners, but you also had the black sharecroppers. The black sharecroppers were not getting paid their money as was expected. But the white landowners were getting paid, but there were also instances where the white landowners were also receiving the money that was supposed to go to the black sharecroppers. Now, add insult to injury, when there were no engineers to fix the levees, you started having some of the white landowners going into the black encampments and forcing them to fix the levees. Now, keep in mind, these guys are not getting good rations for foods for themselves and their families. They're not getting paid any money for the land that they had lost. But now they're being forced to do work that was not even for them to do, sometimes at gunpoint. There was even a black man that was killed during the course of this time because of the fact that they were being forced to fix the levees. So at the time, Herbert Hoover, he was known as being a humanitarian. He was known for that. Instead of them calling, we didn't have FEMA at the time, I believe, but instead of them calling the government resources, they said, let's have Hoover come in. He'll know what to do, which he did. He was good at organizations, but what he was poor at was ensuring the health and the well-being of the blacks. So at this time, you had Robert Mott, who was part of the Tuskegee Institute and also part of the NAACP. He threatened to go to the local news media and let it be known that blacks were being mistreated. Now, Hoover was looking to be president the next time around. And this is going to be shortly, I guess the Great Depression started in 1929. He was elected in 1928, but took office in 1929. But he told Martin, hey man, hey, let's do this. If you keep it cool, keep this out of the press and don't let this get out. If I am elected president, I will do any and everything I can for the blacks to make sure that you guys see forward progression. I will be someone on your side. All right, so that's the line that he gave them. As soon as he became president, do I even need to say it? No, didn't do anything for the blacks, completely let it go. So that moment right there is where the biggest spark got started to move or get blacks moving away from the Republican Party. Now, keep in mind, the Republican Party at that time was still the party of Lincoln who freed the slaves. So I was saying early on the panel, when I hear blacks say, well, what's voting in America ever done for a black man? What's America ever done for a black man? And I told Fatty, you probably meet him later on, but a partner of mine who ran the panel, I said, America freed your black ass. That's what America did. But again, moving forward here, going to that, Atwater is now part of the Republicans who are now the bigots, the ones who left the Democratic Party. So listen to what he had to say when he was describing the Southern strategy. So again, you heard me describe the strategy, how they use coded language, they look for segregation tactics, disenfranchisement, what else? Immigration, states' rights. This is everything that the strategy was. But check this out: fair use, fair use.
Here's how I would approach that issue as a statistician or a political scientist, or no, as a psychologist, which I'm not, is how abstract.
Is that too? Can you hear that clear enough?
You can hear it, but it's cut off. I don't know if you pause it or.
Oh yeah, I pause it. Yeah, I paused it. I just want to make sure you can hear it because the sound was reverberating, but you can hear it
A
all
little
right.
bit. It is a little bit of reverberating. It is a little bit, but it's you can make it out.
Okay, cool. I'll go ahead and start it back up. Fair use, fair use.
Okay.
Is blacks get hurt worse than whites. And subconsciously, maybe that is part of it. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that if it is getting that abstract and that coded, that we're doing away with the racial problem one way or the other. You follow me? Because obviously, sitting around saying we want to cut taxes, we want to cut this, and we want is much more abstract than even the busing thing. And a hell of a lot more abstract than nigger, you know. So any way you look at it, race is coming on the back burner.
Mm.
All right, so I think that was one of them that was really edited because what you actually heard. Let me see if there's there's one where I think this news. Yeah, what is infamous? Okay, maybe this might be the right one. So that was a little bit edited, the way that it went down, because the one that I'm speaking of, you actually heard him say in 1954, we could say nigger, nigger, nigger. But you
Mm.
actually had him saying that. That's the one that I thought there was. Let me try this one.
Strategy.
In other words, you start out, and now y'all
Turn up a little bit more.
You start out in 1954 by saying nigger, nigger, nigger. By 1968, you can't say nigger. That hurts you, backfires. So you say stuff like force busing, states' rights, and all that stuff. And you're getting so abstract now, you're talking about cutting taxes and all of these things you're talking about are totally economic things, and the byproduct of them is blacks get hurt worse than whites.
Yeah, it's all code. It's covered.
Yep.
As I said before, it never changed. It's all there. It's underneath the surface. That's all. It's right at the surface. We say it's coded. So you can't say these words here like you used to say. So you gotta say these other words. You use other tactics. So nothing's
So,
changed. What the mindset hasn't changed is how they delivering it now. But the
and there
people are
you
still
go.
they're still teaching their children, their grandchildren, and all around them, that they're superior. I mean, I've been all over the world. I've been in Africa. I'm in the Dominican Republic right now. Same crap is going on around here. People here, you know, whites seem to be the most superior of everything. Korea, same thing. You know, just that the superiority complex. I don't know, they call it period during the slavery. Was it they call it the awakening period? I gotta look into that. Why they call it the awakening
Do
period?
you mean Reconstruction?
Basically, it's reconstruction
Yeah, starting in 1866. Yeah,
well, no. Before then, we're talking about slavery. The whole slavery period. They call that period the awakening period. I don't know why they call it that. The
oh, you're not
awakening
talking the end of slavery, but are you talking during slavery?
during slavery, the whole slavery time, they call it an awakening period. I have to look into that why it was called that, or at least what I saw they call that.
Yeah,
That's all. I mean, that's all. Everything stems from that. Everything stems from that. The way this world is, the way thinking a white is superior and all that crap, it's all stems from slavery. All stems from that era. I didn't realize, for the discovery of the Americas, it started right here, in the Caribbean, right? Here, Dominican Republic and all that. I had no idea. So as being here and learning their history, everything started from here. All the slave trade started from here, and it branched out from here up north
it
into
did.
North America and to South America. Did not
Now,
know that.
people didn't realize here that And I had, again, this is an argument that I stopped having. I had to put links down, but even if you put the links down, people refuse to believe it. Oh, that's just leftist trash. Now, if they can't call it leftist trash, if someone from their own party tells them this, then they're rhinos. Republicans in name only. But the fact of the matter is that it was the Spaniards that brought blacks to this side of the world. And
Spaniards and Portuguese. Portuguese
yep,
is all
yep.
this is involved.
Well, let me take that back. I don't want to call it Portuguese, Spanish, and vice versa. But yes, Spaniards and Portuguese. But primarily, it was the more so the Spaniards, the largest with the largest.
They were funny. Yeah, they were
Spanish Armada. So you're talking about they brought blacks over to Caribbean, Antigua, Barbados, Jamaica, or what we know as St. Croix now, and then also South America, Brazil. And the idea was that, well, maybe they'll work well if we put them in a climate that we took them from. But the only reason that blacks made it to North America was because an English sailing ship jumped on to a Spanish freight and stole about 20 Africans, and brought those Africans to America. So the Africans who showed up over here, they weren't slated to come to America. They were going to South America, or at least to the southern hemisphere, just like all the other ones, until the Brits raided the boat, took the 20 Africans, brought them to America, and bam, that's where everything kicked off. And there are still people who do not know this. People don't seem to understand that blacks did not make it to America unless there was an exploration party from another country that came here. But the slave trade itself did not start until after the British stole African stole Africans who were captured from the Spanish and brought them to the States. Now, going back to this, I'm sorry, go ahead, man. Let me land it before I do this. You got anything you want to say before I kick off in this very last clip?
No, just that. I mean, I guess that's when it started to venture to North America. Slave trade was already going on at its peak marks then. It was mainly in South America and down in the Caribbean and all that kind of stuff. With the sugar cane and the tobacco and stuff like that. So all coffee, all that stuff was manufactured from slave trade, and sent back to Europe. But it's easier. I mean, it's so well documented. I don't know if I'm going to try to take that out of documentation. From the history books. I mean, the reasons why it was so easy is because the same problem, what black people have right now. There's a lot of black people against each other. So you pitch black folks with one another black folks, and it's easier to separate. And then you got back then. I mean, Africa's a continent. It's not a real people. It's a continent. You got different ethnicities of peoples that live on that continent. And you put everybody bunched all together. No one knows each other's languages, customs, or cultures. None of that crap.
Hutus, Zambians, Nigerian.
Exactly. It's different peoples, different ethnicity of people. Only thing they have in common is you have darker skin, but that's it. Everything's different people. So it's easier to control versus, and they try to do it with the Indians and stuff like that. Had problems doing that. Why? Because they banded together. So I mean, and you find a lot of times, and I see a lot of time a lot of other races, they band together, in certain situations and stuff like that, So that's another topic, but
yeah. So last thing I'll say before I step into the video, the history is what you were saying about how blacks themselves, how they're not associating with each other, or how we're against each other.
Yeah.
Recall, the Daughters of the Confederacy, they came to be 1894. These were the children, the daughters primarily, of the Confederate soldiers that now they were building, or they built monuments to them. They romanticized in the South, saying that, the Civil War was not about slavery. It was about states' rights. Not bullshit. It was never about that. But the problem here is that the losers got to write history. And basically what you have is the lost cause narrative of the Confederacy. talking about how it was benevolent being in the South, that blacks loved being slaves, and that their masters would give them a skill and they sang all day in the fields, and all this type of nonsense, which is anything further from the truth. Because during that period of time before the Daughters of the Confederacy um, came to power, we're talking about maybe 15, 20 years prior to that, you had instances of the Ku Klux Klan burning slaves out of their homes. Once they drag them out, again, shoot them, hang them up in the tree, shoot them some more after hanging them. And then instances of where, defiling the man's wife in front of him, killing the children, using little black babies as crocodile baits in Louisiana or places like that, where they put a hook to them, throw them out in the water to bring in the crocs. All this type of stuff is going on. The Daughters of the Confederacy romanticized this to the point they also were able to influence publishers. Remember Macmillan Books going to school as a kid? Yep. Macmillan, these were some of the publishers I want to some research I'd done at one point in time, but you had textbooks publishers like Macmillan and others who were told, if you do not print history the way that we're saying, we will not support your books. Your books will not get read and you won't make it to the school system. So you had multiple school systems who were changing their curriculum so that it coincided with what the Daughters of the Confederacy wanted to be printed in books. So we're talking about subversion that has been going on for 130 years. And remember, the solid South, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Mississippi, Georgia, Alabama, Texas, Virginia. I didn't mention Texas, right? I'm missing a few, but nonetheless, you've got all these folks who, and some places up north also, who are in receipt of these textbooks that had this altered, this revisionist history that's still being put out to this day. It's like I said, there's a young brother on this panel who had the audacity to say blacks had it better under segregation. So if I can find that, I'll probably put that in the clip in the next show that I do, because I want to get more people to have this conversation with. But nonetheless, I'll land the plane right there and we'll take it out here with Roland Martin. So what Roland is doing right now, everything that we have a conversation about, he's had a discussion about the Reconstruction era. He's talking about how blacks were prominent, where we were doctors, we were congressmen, we were statesmen, we were in legislation, we were doctors, we were bankers. There was black prominence in just 11 years, from 1866 up until 1877, until when the Northern troops were pulled out of the Southern outposts, because the Rutherford B. Hayes was the Republican for president, and I forgot what Tilden's name, but a guy named Tilden for the Democrats. Both claimed victory, but you couldn't do that. So the Southern Democrats said, okay, here's what we'll do. You Republicans, you can have the presidency, but in exchange, we want you to take the troops out of the South. And again, the troops were there because after the Civil War, the blacks were being integrated into Southern society. But we know the antebellum South wasn't going to allow that. But nonetheless, what Roland is putting together here, and if you want to catch the link or catch the name down here, I would highly suggest you take a look at this when you get a moment, because this whole show talks about how we may be looking at the end of the second Reconstruction period that started in 1965 after the Voting Rights Act was passed, and also after the 1964 Civil Rights Bill was passed. So we've had almost 50 some odd years of black prominence. And what he's trying to make known here is that we sit in a point in time where we could very well lose that. And we're talking about another 100 years or so, potentially, not definitively as yet, but potentially, if we do not get blacks engaged and understand what's happening around them. All right, so that's the groundwork, fair use.
Voting Rights Act, what we have effectively done is gutted black leadership and African Americans from being able to take advantage of what happens in this country. So while a lot of y'all are bullshitting around on whether you can be on fucking TikTok, while you're getting caught up in some bullshit housewife, while you're having your fucking MJ and LeBron debates on who's the GOAT, there is literally, as we speak, an entire focus to gut every single civil right and economic gain that we have had since 1964, because they are pissed with those three acts. They're pissed with the Brown versus Board of Education Act. You have voucher bills that are being pushed in Texas and Tennessee and other places to gut public education. What we have to understand is there is a vicious assault to completely defund Black America. So why did I wear what I'm wearing today? We had this sister on the show. She launched her own athletic apparel company, shoe company as well. So what I'm wearing, y'all, is all Black owned. Well, we have to understand, King talked about it in his sermon on April 3rd, 1968. What do you think this was about? Operation Breadbasket, an untold story of civil rights in Chicago, 1966 to 1971 by Martin Depp. This was about the money. And when you have corporations who are now afraid, who are scared to death, oh, Costco is standing up to them. McDonald's buckled. Walmart buckled. Jack Daniels buckled. If you want to understand what Black folks should be doing, every Black person right now should be saying, the hell with Jack Daniels. Don't ever buy Jack Daniels again. You don't want to stand with us, especially when you are a company that even exists because a Black man showed you how to do it. We should be saying, get Uncle Nearest. Black folks should be saying, Hennessy, where do you stand? Yeah, we're going to stop drinking your stuff too. The only way we are going to counter what is happening right now, this effort to defund Black America, is to say, keep playing with us, we're going to defund your company. Because there are companies that depend upon Black market share. Car companies, soda companies, fast food companies, clothing companies. Black America, music companies, entertainment companies. But the question is, do we have the actual courage to use the power that we have? Greg, I'm going to go to you first.
Boom, and there it is. But you saw how it started out. I've pretty much given you the groundwork of what happened during Reconstruction, 1866 with the Civil Rights Act that gave Blacks the ability to own property, to participate in contracts, more or less to be a part of business. The 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery. The 14th Amendment, which guaranteed us protection. The 15th Amendment, which gave us the right to vote. These three amendments were called the Reconstruction Amendments that fell under the 1866 Civil Rights Act, which led off Reconstruction. But these are the main amendments that kicked everything off, per se. And then you had a few more later on down the road. You had the Civil Rights Act of 1873, which dealt with Blacks having the ability to be in public areas, dining cars, on train tracks, or even being a part of being able to sit in dining rooms, just being able to be out in public. And you had I think it was 1957 Civil Rights Act. I can't recall right off the top of my head because I'm fuzzy on that one. But again, there were 4 Civil Rights Acts in total. 4. And you have to ask yourself, why is it that our kids don't know these things? Well, you'd almost have to ask, because a good enough job was done to whereas the racism or the back end of it that we saw, being that, again, we came in onto the scene after Jim Crow, they didn't see it. No. So therefore, they're more dismissive of it when I say to them, do you guys understand how close we are to seeing these precedents rolled back, whereas we are going to lose some of the freedoms that you guys have had your entire life? Oh, no. I mean, if they take Harriet Tubman out of the regular rotation or out of the books and public. I mean, her information is still there. So you're just being too you're making it more dire than what it is. I'm like, do you not understand that by removing these folks from public sites, public education, then people are left to review it on their own? What they're not understanding is now you're making way for revisionist history. So therefore, if Harriet Tubman is taught in New York, but it's not taught in the solid South, the states we just mentioned, whose reality are you going to pay attention to now? That's why it was federalized at some point, so everyone fell under one direction that we marched in, or as a nation. You take that away, that means that I can sit here, for example, Kamala Harris is a black woman. Do you know how many people, blacks, even just this week, I got into a confrontation with? She ain't black. Candace Owens said that she wasn't. Candace Owens, are you familiar with who Candace Owens is? Bruh, like I said, but I'll put it this way. I'll give you the link here, and you may want to get involved because Layla and Alicia, they're going to need to be up to speed on what's going on right now, because everything that our generation was lucky enough to have put behind us, and they have never seen it.
Yeah,
it's that close to coming back. But I'll go ahead and land my plane right here on that, man. You have any last words?
No, sir. This it's great to be here. Great to be a part of this. It's a great discussion. Um, you know, definitely great topics. We could definitely spin this off with other topics too. Maybe we do that in another note. But definitely great
Well,
to be
man, if
here.
you can, definitely. I didn't mean to catch it late at night, but I figured, hey, single man, we both retired, and you're still going through your retirement phase. I didn't know you were still down in South America, man. I thought you were already back up here.
Well, I'm in DR. I'm in the Caribbean now. So I was in South America and Brazil. Been there for Carnival. Came back for about a good week. Now I'm in DR for about 3 months. So I'll be coming back in probably July.
Where are you
Did I go?
staying for all this?
Did I go to Saint Lucia for about 4 or 5 days for mother's? She want to go there for a 70th birthday party, 70th birthday. So we go there for that. Now I'm also trying to plan me a trip to go back to Europe, go to Germany for about maybe 2.5 months, something like that.
So obviously, so you're gonna take a whole year off before you go back to work, or what?
Well, I mean, I actually wanted to go back to the civil service, be a civil servant, but that got
I don't think
rug
that's
got
gonna
pulled.
work out well for
That
you
ain't
here.
gonna work out. The rug got pulled underneath me. I
You
had
are
I had
DEI.
opportunities to get pulled in. Even I had one even as a direct hire, but all got pulled underneath me. So I'm like, okay. So I take these opportunities, to enjoy life. You know. So that's what I'm gonna do.
And you've been gone for how long now?
Well, I left to come here on the 25th of March, so it only been 2 weeks. But it'll be 3.5 months. So, but I've been out officially. Well, I left Europe, the Netherlands, back in October. So that's like 6 months ago.
Yeah, I
About
remember you gave me a call, and I was walking around in Best Buy looking at some stuff.
yeah, yeah. So October is when I left from there, and then yeah, since then I've just been moving around. Let's continue to do that. Continue
All
to do
right,
that,
man.
enjoy, until something else happens, something else sparks another direction. But why not?
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll try and catch you at a better time if there is one, because I've got a bad habit of being a night owl. Because no matter what I do, I still end up being on Germany time, man. So when I'm supposed to be in bed, that's what I'm doing right now. It's almost 3:30 in the
Well,
morning. So we got to cut
that's
this out.
that's a pleasure being, I guess, for me being retired. I can do this. I can,
Yep. You're
I ain't
retired.
coming. I ain't coming like 5 in the morning yesterday. So I'm still like kind of on a night owl time with that. But I try to get since now I'm gonna be stuck. I'll be here for like a good 3 months. Try to get myself a little schedule. You know. So, but
What time is
yeah,
it down there locally right now?
it's 3:22. Same as
Oh,
there.
okay, perfect. So what I'll do here, I'm going to try and organize another panel here. It may not be
Okay.
this week. I may try and do it during the course of the week. Now that I know that you don't have shit to do because you're retired. I'm the retired, went back to work because they put money out here. But I don't know how much longer it's going to be out here with small business contracting now on the
And
wire where they've cut.
and that's
They start
and that's
cutting
what I'm
us.
hearing. As I'm hearing, I got folks that's in, that's in people that's in contracting now. They'll never have a job and not later on, or the next day or whatever, So I mean, it's affecting that as well, that aspect as well. So I can't just jump. I can't just go and try to find a contracting job. It may be the same scenario. So just hey, sit back, get the popcorn out, watch the show, travel around, enjoy life. I mean, I still get a paycheck, on the first of the month. So 2 paychecks. So I enjoy that.
Until he starts messing with the people, didn't think that certain presidents wouldn't be overthrown here.
Yeah,
But
no.
folks, earlier the executive order
Mhm.
that Eisenhower put in place, 11246, that prohibited segregation on the FAR from what is it, the Federal Acquisition Regulations on government contracts. That's now live again to where you can
Mhm.
have segregation in the contracts. However, it can't really go into effect because of the enforcement mechanisms being the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. That is where the aim is going to right now. If they are able to overturn those two precedents, we're back in Jim Crow. So
Wow.
this whole bit of what we're talking about right now is leading up to that. But again, only you and I understand the severity of this because we
Yeah.
grew up a stone's throw away from
Mhm.
Jim Crow. So we know what that
Mhm.
is. But the kids and my nephews, they've no idea. They can't even contemplate it because it was taken care of because, as I said before, 64 Civil Rights Act, 65 Voting Act, affirmative action, Operation
Mhm.
Push, the Department of Justice having a Civil Rights Commission being opened up inside of that, which they just scuttled about a week or
Yeah.
so ago, at least getting rid of. All these things again that they have no concept of. It's going to become a factor this time next year, but like I said, like you said, that's a different conversation. So let's go ahead and wrap it up right here. So D, I want to thank you for having time for me to wake you up at 12:30, 1 o'clock to jump in and get in this.
All
To
right, brother.
everybody, I appreciate you guys coming in here. And for my replay gang, by all means, check it out. Leave comments. I'll get back with you. So for the final time tonight, find somebody who knows somebody to tell somebody about what's going on right here. If you like it, let me know. Share it if you do. And subscribe. This is what you're looking for. Again, D, thanks for joining in. Everybody else, appreciate you joining me for the conversation. Until then, John Henry out. Peace.
Peace.